Hello and welcome, my name is Coach Pav and today I'm going to be talking about how stress destroys your cycling performance. Now, for me, there are three types of stress when I look at my athletes and start to talk to them about how we can make sure that what we're doing in training isn't actually making it worse. And obviously the first one is training, popularized by Training Stress Score, and surprise to most people when I talk about it, yes, actually training is stress. It's obviously physical stress. It's stress because we want to make sure that when your body recovers from said stress, you adapt, your body adapts and gets stronger at it. Now the other two are acute and chronic. Now if you know the definition of those words, you could probably understand or guess that acute stress is something that comes on kind of quite instantly, kind of quite big, and is often, passes pretty quickly too. Whereas, so chronic being the opposite, which is gradually building and maybe is a little less noticeable. Now, the first one, if we go through these, we'll go with acute first. Now, acute stress could be brought on by having an altercation with a neighbour, with an argument with your partner, a job interview, something like that. Now, when we experience this, often, like I say, it passes really quickly. But let's just say that you're feeling super stressed right now. It's something that's coming up. When you try and apply your training around this kind of stress, it's actually quite simple for you to be able to turn that stress into a positive. Now, most people who I coach or I've worked with or talked about this, they will say, and they often remark that when they have a job interview, an argument with their family member or something like that, they go out and they can smash their intervals. It's like the best training they've ever done. It's fantastic because it's really easy to turn that negative stress into a positive and utilize it and do well. That's great. That's a real good way of dealing with acute stress. A lot of people do that, work out when they're stressed from something like this. The next one is obviously chronic. Now, a lot of people don't really recognize, if you're not a mindful person, you might not actually even recognize that you're chronically stressed. It's kind of a little bit like fatigue from training or mental fatigue, burnout, where it can build so slowly over a period of time. It almost just becomes your norm. And it's not until you do whatever it is you do, like go on vacation or you do something, hopefully not have a mental breakdown, but that's the end result with some people. It's not until you remove that actually you recover and you start to go back to what you might consider is your norm. And I think it's a real shame that we haven't actually got that more mindfulness. Now, the problem with chronic stress is that actually, it can come on from, not loving your job, hating your job, very persistent problems with neighbours or family members, unhappiness in the relationship, stuff like that. That's not going away. Like a job interview is like an argument with your spouse. If it's just a one-off, they come and they go. With chronic stress, it's going to be around for ages, and that's where you need to start to look at how you can actually deal with that. And it's not about sitting in that stress and learning some coping mechanisms, although I will go through those in a bit. It is actually probably about being honest with yourself and being like, okay, well, actually, if I'm this unhappy in my job, relationship, whatever it is it not time to make a change? And I'm not the person. I'm not going to be the person to tell you to do anything like that. But I think that is really fundamentally important, because what you will notice when you start to try and train around chronic stress is that the training makes it worse. It might not at first. It might not sort of. You might even see it as a positive to begin with, a release. Like, yes, I love getting on the bike, as most people say. Like, I've had a stressful day and I go out and I ride and I feel free. That's great. But actually, over a long period of time, you are just digging yourself a hole. And eventually, training is going to become something that you're just like, I don't even know I'm riding anymore. And that's why so many people who are unhappy quit riding too. They end up saying that they can't face getting on the bike. It's too hard to get on the bike, because they believe that this is supposed to make them feel good, and they blame cycling. It's not really about the cycling at all. It's the chronic stress that they're under. So I'm going to talk a bit about in a minute how we can start to accept stress. But like I say, fundamentally, if you've got something that is making you that unhappy and that stressed, you have to look inside and be honest and see if you can make a change. And then, of course, the stress from training, which I talked about earlier, the last one, it's tiny really, is and it can be physical stress from a hard job and stuff like that. Like I say, when you start to tie these in around the other two, it's all consider yourself like a pot, and you're adding this stress in. If you're already stressed up to your neck and you're trying to cram in a bit more training, it's not going to help. So I think those are the three ones. The main ones that I talk about with my athletes, my clients, is acute, chronic, and training, and what you can do in order to make them more synergistic. But stress is obviously really important to us nowadays, because it is going to make sure that we provide for anyone who we're responsible for, including ourselves. We do need to be stressed enough to get up and go to work, or stuff like that, because ultimately if we were just all totally no stress whatsoever, nothing would get done. We need to have that internal dialogue, that prompt to actually go and do it. So we're definitely not looking at trying to live a life of no stress, but what we want to do is we want to be able to not respond to stress in the same way. Now, like I said, fundamentally there should be some work to be done around actually what are the causes of stress. We definitely don't want to try and meditate our way through some really unhappy relationship. Like, seriously, if it's that bad, you need to think about leaving. I'm not a marriage counsellor, and I've been through divorce. It's not nice, but honestly, sometimes it's the right thing to do. But I mentioned it there, like some of the things we do to de-stress, to start to cope with stress a little bit better. Rest and relaxation. Are you able to take yourself away? Are you able to get away and just absolutely shut everything else off? Come off social media, digital detox. Do something that really, really makes you happy and makes you relax. So for a lot of people as well, de-stressing fundamentally on a day-to-day basis, you could be talking about not sleeping very well. Some people, get their 7 to 8 hours, but it can be really disturbed, really broken up, really poor quality sleep. So I'm a big fan of making sure that we are getting the right type of sleep, good quality sleep. So if you're somebody that thinks they don't get that, that's something to look at, because that'll change the way you cope with stress. But I mentioned it earlier, meditation, stuff like that, mindfulness, gratitude practice. When you start to do this kind of work, is that actually you are going to start to feel a lot more less reactive to stress. And I think that's kind of the big thing here, is that it's our reactivity to our emotions, stress being a very powerful response or emotion, and we just want to make sure that we are able to recognize it, say, hey stress, thanks for coming, I understand why you're here, but I don't need to react to this today by throwing my toys out the pram or quitting my job or cycling or whatever it is. Of course, maybe you do need to quit your job if you really, really hate it and you're not getting the rewards you deserve for it, but honestly, that implementing some form of mentality, meditation, mindfulness practice is going to absolutely change the way you deal with stress. And of course, just going to wrap up right now, everything that I talk about has one kind of underlining philosophy, and that is individualization, personalization, whatever you want to call it. You definitely need to make this about you. But if you've listened to this and you thought, well, Pav, seriously, none of this resonates. The thought of sitting down for 10 minutes a day and meditating makes me more stressed, makes me feel stressed. Having to focus on all of this, that's fine. It's obviously not for you right now. Just keep it in that possibility. Don't say no. Definitely, don't force yourself to do this. Each and every one of us, we have something that makes us happy. I know we do. We fundamentally do. So whatever it is, if you are that stressed, it's time to go and do that, because we just don't operate very well if we're not coping with stress. So decision making is obviously flawed, everything like that. I just think, you just got to do whatever it is that you do to kind of, get from that full on about to have a mental breakdown to in a place where you're able to actually start to think better. And then it's about maintaining, right? So it's like preventing a crisis, then maintaining it. It's not something that you're probably ever going to be able to stop trying to do. That might sound daunting, but honestly, actually, if you consider that you were to stop going riding your bike, would you retain any of that performance after a year, 2 years, 5 years? No, absolutely not. You would have to start again. And it's the same with working on our mentality. You have to keep doing it. It's not always hard work. Sometimes it's super easy. It's really enjoyable. Most of the time it is, to be honest, anyway. But it is going to change the way you cope with stress, which is going to change the way your life is. And it is also going to improve your cycling performance, because once you remove all of those stress and you become more in tune with your performance in your body, believe me, that is where real performance gains are unlocked. So yes, super roundabout way of me telling you how to sort of reduce your stress or cope with your stress better will help with your athletic performance. But it is the truth. And if you don't believe me, then the only thing I can suggest is try it, because it's completely free. It isn't going to hurt you. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching. I've referenced a few different blogs and resources throughout this video. So if you wanted to read up more, if you're on my website, the blog below will have those links. And if you're on my YouTube channel, in the description of the video will be those links as well. If you've enjoyed this, please do share it with your friends, or leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, something like that. And and just leave me a comment as to what you think was the best bit, or what actually relaxes you the most. So thank you once again. My name is Coach Pav, and have an awesome day.